Milwaukee's MX Fuel equipment system revolutionizes the light equipment market by delivering the performance and durability demanded by the trades. From the MX Fuel cut-off saw and MX Fuel sower machine to the MX Fuel power supply and the MX Fuel tower light, MX Fuel has you covered without the hazards associated with emissions, noise, vibration, and the frustrations of petrol maintenance. MX Fuel, equipment system, equipment redefined. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at RIXX. RIXX is an Australian lifestyle brand founded with a mission to transform the eyewear industry by creating carefully crafted eyewear that inspires confidence. Everybody should be able to enjoy a touch of luxury and the confidence it brings. See the world differently today. Head online now at rixeyewear.com.au and check it out. Righto, let's get into the show. Morning, Lidgy. Bit of energy from the top, big boy. You know I'm not a morning man. I'll tell you what, I hate getting up early.
Mate, you said to me, let's get here a bit early and we'll roll straight from 8:30. What did I say to you? Preparation prevents piss poor performance,
But
mate.
I've been preparing all morning, like in the shower, then thinking about what we're going to talk about. I was actually up real late last night.
Were you?
Yeah.
Thinking about it? Are you a bit nervous?
Never nervous with you. We've got great chemistry, as you know, in the locker room. Thanks for coming on, mate. It's been good.
Long time, mate, since you've asked me and I've been able to wake at work.
I think sometimes you're just always reaching out to new blokes. But then I thought, we're catching up so much lately with the other podcasts we're doing. It'd be great to get you on. Mate, I'm actually really interested. This is what I love about podcasts. You don't sit down and have a coffee or a beer, because when you're having a beer, you probably got blokes around talking shit.
A lot of shit talk.
And actually ask questions that I'm interested in. And the big one today is, well, there's probably two. There's like reflecting on your career and how good it was. I was with you when it finished, but I also grew up as a kid watching you, like as I was saying the other day, when I was a young kid going to the footy dream time at the G as an Essendon fan, you were there's just always you just dominating, and then becoming mates pretty cool to reflect on. But the player agent space, you're heavily involved with at Max Sports, really keen to tap into that. So I thought I'd just start with that at the top. How did you transition from AFL, retiring from AFL, and then getting the gig now? And I think you've been doing it for, how many years have you been doing it for now?
Since midway through 2020. So, coming up 3 years.
Yeah.
Mate, it started, ultimately I thought I'm going to be a football player and coaching looks like the natural path for me. I love working with young blokes and thought, you know what, I think development's probably the key. I never really had the aspirations to be a senior coach, because I've seen some senior coaches, mate, and they flip out.
They do, don't they?
They just, end up going cuckoo, which is, mate, understandable. It's a stressful job, but look, for me, it was more about being able to help and guide young blokes and really, try and impart some of the stuff that I'd learned over my journey, But ultimately, so I got to Hawthorn for about 6 months, but then COVID hits. And last one in, first one gone, which I understood, because there was guys there that were, they'd been there for 8 years and they'd been given the arse as well. So I was like, well, I can't really complain. And I got it, mate, but what it was a blessing in disguise, because it wasn't really what I thought the development side of things was going to be, in terms of, really working closely with the player versus the amount of time behind the computer, being able to present and get in front of the group, which is, I'm a confident person, but it wasn't my strong suit in terms of the computer and having that all dialed. I'd learning Keynote and sports code and all that sort of stuff. Mate, it was foreign to me. It was like speaking Braille. I was, so I ended up just got the arse and went and tried a few other things. So I did some labouring. And a couple of other things. What else did I do? I just tried mowing some lawns and all that sort of stuff, thinking maybe landscaping is what I want to do. I love being outside, love mowing my lawns. But you work out pretty quick that it's good to mow your own lawns, but then when you got to do someone else's, man, and they're not paying you incredibly well, and it's a freezing cold morning like this morning, that's a shitty job.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not a shitty job. It's just a job that I didn't want to do.
Yeah, it's something you didn't want to do.
And my hammer and tack, mate, it just started, I was getting home and my wife's like, how you going? I was like, mate, I can't move. My back is that sore. So I ended up calling and getting on a Zoom with my manager, Anthony McConville, Max Sports, and said, mate, I think this is what I'd really like to try my hand at. Do you think I can get in? But he's like, mate, well, if you're going to get in, you got to get a stake in the game. He goes, I want you to be invested and be really a part of the business. And I was like, oh, mate, I'm retired. Things are obviously tight at the moment because we've got no job, no income. But then I was like, well, I'm in, mate. I want to be part of it. I want to see what it's like. So I just basically, because everything was on Zoom, started doing the calling kids, the Zoom calls, trying to sign up these kids all over Zoom, which is, mate, that was an experience in itself. Like talking to kids, my first draft would have been the one before Jamara's, I reckon. I don't know who was number 1 pick that year. I can't remember.
I can find out. I'm hopeless.
Yeah. But then we ended up going through that. Didn't have anyone drafted. I didn't, but we as a club had Caleb Poulter and Liam McMahon at Collingwood. Ollie Henry drafted in the first round, and then a couple of other boys as well.
They're all Max Sports.
Max Sports boys. And then the next year we actually started, like, we'd be able to get out and about and whatever else. But
so just for everyone out there forgets, COVID was when you started, so you had to do everything online.
Everything was online, mate. So I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't going to watch any footy. The champs were just Mickey Mouse games that were just put on because, I was watching the 17s. This is where I first saw this year's number 1 draft pick, potentially Harley Reid playing as a bottom major, George Wardlaw and Elijah Sardis, those boys that went and all played in their top age year last year. So just watching the footy, but then being able to talk to these young blokes, mate, and really give them the guidance and helping them with their game. Because, mate, ultimately I saw the opportunity saying, well, I'm fresh out of the game, and everything that I've learned, the biggest thing for kids is being able to actually perform, isn't it? And that's where being able to lean on that, I think, and being able to be that guiding force for these kids is something that we really lean on with, and what I try and portray to young kids. Because ultimately, mate, you don't need a manager until you've been drafted, but it's bloody hard to get drafted, so you've got to put so many things in place prior to that and to start to live a really professional lifestyle prior to it, because there's 70 kids maybe that get picked up, and how many thousands of kids that want to get drafted. So it's never been harder. Like, it is incredibly hard to get drafted, but there's also more opportunities. So, mate, we're really about just trying to help these kids put everything in place to give them the best opportunity, and the biggest thing, mate, is that it goes back to that development coaching stuff. That's what gives me my kicks. You're talking to kids about their game and the body work and the stuff that they can do, and then they're like, oh, Lids, that works. And I'm just like, man, I know it works. I did it for years, but I'm so glad that you're using it and you're loving it, So that's what gives you you see a kid's game go from 20 touches and a shot on goal to 25, nearly 30, just through a few little things that we've worked on and spoken about through watching his game and different things like that, mate. It's the proof's been in the pudding over the last couple of years. We've changed the way some guys have been going about their footy, which has really helped them get drafted. So I'm not here patting myself on the back.
No, it's good. You remind me of, I had Hayden Skipworth. He was working at Connor Sports when I was going to sign with them on Max Sports, which I think I've told a funny story. I might have tell it later. And it was just so refreshing to hear, because Skip was on a list at the time where he might have just been fresh off it. And it was a very similar approach. It wasn't a sell. It was a, how you going? How can I help? And you just love to hear it. And as a kid from Riddles Creek, I was, and you'd never had a deeper conversation with an AFL player besides a signature at an open day. It was it was really cool. And it was something that really was a good touch point. So I'd imagine you're getting a lot of fulfillment out of helping these kids, but they're building a strong relationship with you. And ultimately, when they do get drafted, before they get drafted, they're probably going, I feel comfortable with you. I'll sign with Max Sports. So, it's a great strategy, but also it's for you. You're not doing it for that. You're actually trying to find that thing you're looking for, which is pretty impressive.
Well, and that's where I feel like I've landed on my feet, mate, is that it's helping these young guys. And, I was reflecting on my career, if we go into that later, but it's like, I wish I spent more time dealing with young blokes. I was so selfish in terms of, if I play well, we'll play well, So that's where you get that fulfillment, is that, you're seeing guys really flourish, and you're on that journey with them, mate, from a 16-year-old, essentially, which I was with Macca, who's my manager way back from 2003. You're on that journey all the way through to seeing them play, get drafted, hopefully play their first game, all that sort of stuff, buy their first house, get married, all that sort of stuff. So you build that really strong connection. But Mate, it's great. I love it. Like, it's not a day that I go to work and I'm like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I remember speaking to Paul and Mel, who's been on here, and just knowing the industry. But your phone, you never know what could pop up on your phone. How many players have you got on the on Max Sports list?
Max Sports, we've got 35, 40 AFL boys at the moment.
Yeah.
And then another maybe 10 to 15 boys for this year's draft.
Oh, so you got a fair few coming through.
Yeah, well, there's some good chances, and there's some boys that, you play good footy, play well in the champs, or even just play really good footy in the back end, you can get yourself a chance, you know. But we've actually got a lot of tall boys this year, so I've got some big ruckmen, and some key position players that, you know, it's not a tall draft next year, so hopefully they get a sniff this year. And
you're like talking Chinese to the big boys, wouldn't it? Telling them how to do some stoppage work.
I've said that to my to Macca. It's like, mate, because he's had Max Gore and Mummy, Trent West, Mark Blake, like heaps of ruckmen over his journey. And I said, mate, I don't know about dealing with these big rucks because it is seriously that foreign to me. I've got no idea in terms of, I said to all these other boys, I was like, I can pretty much help you with any other position other than ruck. I said, I haven't played it. You know, so yeah, mate, it's better. I think the thing with it is it's just fun, mate, and I enjoy it. And you see a smile on kids' face, but you also ride the highs and the lows more in particular, you know, because you know what it's like, mate. You play a shitty game and you're down in the dumps and you're looking for something to help get you back up. I say, right, well, let's go back and watch one of your real good games, you know, pick yourself back up and get going again.
It picks yourself up as well. I reckon, I'm not pumping myself up, but I reckon I did a lot for a lot of boys, and it helped me because I was always in and out of the team. I understood the fringe, you know, and I used to see good players get dropped and really struggle. Yeah. And I used to enjoy picking them back up, and then they'd go and flourish again. And I used to love seeing blokes that were really struggling, like Jack Buckley, Connor Ryden at the Giants. Yeah. Like I spent a lot of time with them when they were really probably like, what, you know, I'm like, just trust me, like what you're doing is a process, and you're gonna stand up. You're gonna stand. You know, you got a long career. The most important thing is just to continue to build, you know, your respect internally, and then you watch them now, and they're flourishing, and they're just a couple of examples. There's a fair few out there. Yeah. You do get a lot of fulfillment out of it. It kind of takes your own mind away from all your kind of stuff, especially internally. I noticed, but even now, I still enjoy. I know I take the piss about the Gold Coast Suns and me mate Rory Atkins and all that, but you know, there's a genuine and Griffin Logue a few years ago when he was out of contract, and David Mundy when he's out of contract. Like, yeah, I might take the piss, but I'm genuinely serious when I'm messaging the GMs on text message or the coaches on a DM. I'm genuinely serious because it's like it actually is going to help the club if you listen to me, and I don't care if you don't listen to me, but it's just your front of mind, and they're probably going, wow, because it's just so rewarding seeing that, you know, what you say work. You know, they come back in and you're like, I told you. Yeah. But also giving the player a bit of confidence. They've probably got no one else doing that. Yeah, and that's the thing we find, mate, is that there's a lot of, you can slip through the cracks really quickly, especially like with young kids. You know what? The stars, they look after themselves. You know, your top 10, 20 picks potentially, they're really good players, mate, and they're self-sufficient. Still can do with, you know, pep talk every now and again and pick me up, but it's the other guys, you know, the next lot of kids in the draft that are the ones that, you know, they show a bit, but then they're not really getting the coaching that can take them from being a pick 45 right into a 20 to 30, you know. They're the ones that you spend a lot of time with to try and elevate their game and say, well, mate, you're doing some good stuff, but how can we take that to the next level, you know? And it's not just telling them and being on the phone and talking to them, it's about showing them as well, because we've got vision that we can back it up with. It's amazing. And if you ever do go into coaching, I'd hope that, it's not that you don't treat every player the same. You've got to treat everyone differently because you've got to spend more time with this, you know, the players that are performing highly. But I just reckon it's underrated, the coaches that spend more time with the fringe and the players that are going to help them. And we always talk about it takes all of us to get there. And as I said, Craig McCracken, I don't even know him, but I watched from afar, and I just would have loved to play a year under him, you know, just to see how much my footy could have got, you know, blossomed, because he just looks like he's got everyone, you know, under, like just everyone's engaged, and I don't think he would leave anyone aside. Like I definitely reckon I've seen coaches, heard about coaches where for some reason they think it's fine not to talk to their players for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And it's like, it's hard to comprehend. Like I feel like coaches, I don't know. So I got no, I can't, it's a bit like the ruck. I got no idea what it's like, right? There's a lot of stress and all that. But when you break it all down and you think about coaches growing up, even my junior footy coaches love them, could name them all the way to TSC Cup. They spend so much time, like every training session, how you going? Just a little, mate, thought you did this, could improve in this. That's enough, just a little fix. I just find it really strange that coaches don't engage with 40 players on a list. They only engage with sometimes 12 and then they leave their line coaches for the rest when, let's be fair, like players want that fix from the head coach.
They crave it.
I know, and I don't know why they don't. I don't know. I just feel like that's why I think Craig McRae, I reckon he would get around majority of them. And so what you're doing is fantastic because what happens is if the coach's not talking to you, you don't have to be like Einstein to work out, mate, keep your head up. You're going to be right. We've got to fix this. If you're getting all this advice from blokes like you and coach is still not talking to you, sometimes that advice from you can just keep them up to a level where they're like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm nearly there. Just keep them they're like positive and their confidence at a level where they're not going to drop and miss a kick and think, fuck, I'm back in the twos again. Just little things like that.
I think that's the key, mate, is that you're constantly looking for ways to keep the boys on the top of their game, but understanding that no one plays 22 good games. There's plenty of times where you got to find the positives in little things. And I'm not about pissing on anyone's back, mate, and telling them it's raining and just saying it's awesome, mate. You're going great. Because there is a time for honest feedback as well, and being able to say, well, could you have done this a little bit better? Tell me what you really thought about that decision there, and that's what the coaches are saying. But mate, for like the AFL boys, like they've got that many noises and voices and that, and people talking to them, so it's for the kids that are coming through to say, well, and it's never to step on anyone's toes, mate. I'm not stepping on any coach's toes and saying, don't stand where the coach is telling you to stand. Don't, I want you to stand over here. I want you to take 6 bounces and kick goal of the year. It's none of that. It's all craft sort of stuff, things that you can really add to your game that'll just elevate your game. So
it is the basics, isn't it?
Mate, it's fundamentals. And that's what, mate, it took me years to work out how physical you need to be at stoppage. It wasn't until I played on one of your mates, Nat 5, mate, borderline murder. Like some of the stuff he was doing to me neck and pushing me out of the way. I was like, God, and he gets away with it. I was like, I'm going to start trying this.
Yeah.
Works. So you start showing kids, it's like, no, this is how physical you need to be. And I see some young boys that we're working with now, their stoppage craft and some of the things that they're doing, because we've had a training session with them, they're getting themselves separation just through trying these little things. And then you talk to them, they're like, oh, mate, that works. It's so good. I said, mate, there's a reason why Fifey's won a couple of Brownlows.
Yeah.
The guy can play a bit, and he does the prep work before it, So, mate, that's just our little niche at the moment, and we're capitalising on me being fresh out of the game, and I'm constantly learning about the business and the art of negotiation and what you do and you don't say, and how much your relationships count right across the board. Like it's not just. So I look at your old manager Paul, and he is the most connected bloke I've ever met. Everywhere he goes, he knows someone. I jumped on the train grand final day, just picked a random carriage. Lo and behold, there's Paul, and he's talking to most people up and down that carriage. I was just like, how do you know so many people, mate? But that's what it's mostly about, mate. And I'm a country boy at heart, so I, really try and extend out to the country and try and connect with a lot of those people, because I understand what it's like being from the country, how much you have to travel, how you can be forgotten, and how little people, or how much they take for granted. The metro boys, train, 3 times a week in here, whereas the country boys 1 time a week, and most of the boys are travelling between an hour and 2.5 hours just to get to that one training session, getting home at nearly midnight and then going to school the next day. So mate, I get all that. I went through that myself. So I lean on that a heap, but at the end of the day, mate, I'm a pretty laid back sort of a guy with how I approach the boys, and try and be quite receptive, because I can understand there's a stigma about, oh, you played and you've done all this, but I try not to be that at all. And I don't want any bloke to feel like or any young kid to bring up and just be like, Lids, I just want to have a chat about how we're going. Mate, absolutely. I encourage all of them to try and do that. And I love those chats, because you find out a little bit more about these kids and how they're actually going, but I'm loving it, mate.
It's good. You can kind of tell as well. Like we had shit endings, like in terms we were literally, and it's well documented, but both had real tough calf. Obviously, everyone would know yours more because you're a superstar, but we were in rehab for however known. Obviously, we both just rolled out on one leg. And in a footy place, it's very intense, and you're very stressed. There's a lot going on, but every time I catch up with you now, you're just more relaxed, and you're like, you got that father figure, kind of like, you're very sound with advice. I can just tell it's just like you're really enjoying, this phase in your life now, and it's probably not as intense, as we know AFL riggers, it's intense, but there was that stress of, you could tell, like, time's ticking and got to get the rig right. And, I was in the same boat because I had no contract either. And you could just see it's just different space you're in now. When we catch up, it's like, you just look and feel like a different human, and it's good, mate. It's good to see you thriving, because the reason I ask is a lot of people struggle post-footy, and I'll put my hand up. Like, I was doing stuff for my own business. I was working at RIXX and then started this, but there's that hole in your heart of, like, I still have it now. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm missing something. It's a team sport. It's a locker room, and I don't want to go in and play footy at the moment because I'm trying to build the business and do other things and enjoy life a little bit more after all the years, including the TSC Cup days, because people forget how hard they are. But it is hard when you step away from a footy club, because you're stepping away from 100 people, a minimum, and then obviously you're not training every day, so you're just filling your other days with how to exercise. So it's good to see that you're going well, and you've transitioned, because that's. I guess being a player and manager as well, have you seen a fair few players transition and struggle? I mean, you would have seen a few now that have had the chop. Yeah,
not guys that I've been directly or have managed just yet, because I'm still so young in the game. But we've got a couple of boys that got, when I was there, got drafted and then have been let go since. And just being able to keep them on track, but still following up to make sure that they're still playing good footy. If they've still got that drive, mate, we're still there to help out and try and do everything. But if they're saying, listen, I'm stepping away, I'm going to go and just play with my mates and whatever, that's fine, mate. We'll still stay in touch, but there's probably not much we can do from a management point of view, other than if, Caleb Poulter made it at the Pies. He's big mullet, marketable sort of a dude, still making some good coin off his Instagram and his socials, because his missus has got a huge following and that sort of stuff as well. So, mate, you still have stuff coming through the door for him, but it's like he still comes in and does a game review with us, and we sit down and say, mate, this is where, this is what other clubs are saying about your game and how you can really help yourself, because he likes the honest feedback. It's not just watered down, it's not too bad, mate. Yeah, that's a good kick there, and bullshit, whatever. But, mate, look, I guess to go back to what you were saying about the being happy and content was I took it way too long to realise that footy wasn't everything. And I've just been reflecting on that quite a bit of late. Someone else asked me this question not that long ago, but footy was everything to me, mate. And I say that with, I hold my breath a little bit, but if I didn't take it so seriously, I probably don't have the career that I did have, because I was one-eyed, selfish, to the detriment of, my relationship with my now wife and my family at times. My brother and now sister-in-law say the first time I met her, my brother was living with me. I just played on a Thursday night, played a stinker, we lost. And she's like, and Matt's like, my brother's, Brett, this is Hannah. Would you like to? And I was like, hey. Mate, I feel like an arsehole because I treated her like shit. So I was just so focused on, I'm down the bottom in the stats and I haven't had a great game and I've put all this work in and now I've just played an absolute rubbish game round one. They still bring it up and remind me of it.
It's good.
It's a reminder in terms of how serious footy was and how seriously I took it. But now to the point where I'm like, you know what? It's a great job, mate. And you know how good it is. Like you love it when you're in it, but you've also got to understand that it is just a job. And you're not. It's not like you're not invested, and that's what the fans want to see, and they understand all that. But you still got to have that piece of you that's just like, you know what? I got way too down on losses and bad performances, to the detriment of my mental health. But didn't get up and enjoy the wins enough and the good times as well. Because it was like maybe that'll go against me in terms of how I go and play finals and we might not be good enough. I remember running around the tan here with Chrissy Newman, one of my best mates. We'd started our running program and the prelim finals were on and I was just like, this is fucked.
Yeah.
I said, we can't be doing this, mate. We got to get back and play finals. And I don't know whether you remember that Powerade ad with Adam Goods and he's running around. He's just like, grand final. And he's drinking the Powerade. That used to go through my head when things were getting hard. And I'm just thinking, I've got to get to a granny. That's what I've got to do. I've got to, and everything I did was to try think that I'm going to be better. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to do more than anyone else because that'll make me better, that'll make us better, and hopefully I can bring everyone else along for the ride with me. Now, what I didn't understand is that to bring other people along, it wasn't just showing it. It wasn't just being a hard ass and saying that's not good enough. Work harder, be better. It was more about understanding and guidance, what I've got now, understanding that different blokes understand and get the best out of themselves in different ways, So that's probably like a regret over my journeys because that's how I got taught, it was like work hard, get rewards, and everything else take care of itself. So I learnt that way, and so then I probably delivered that speech, and Brandon Ellis actually talks to me about it still. It was like, I remember going to the vending machine and getting a chocolate bar on a trip away, and I was like, mate, are you fucking serious? What are you doing there? You're buying a chocolate bar? And he's like, mate, I still think of that now when I'm running out the plane. I was like, mate, well, it stayed with you, didn't it?
Yeah.
But mate, I probably was a little bit too stiff and one-eyed, but I'm thankful that I was because that gave me the career that I had, and I'm incredibly proud of the career I had. So, yeah.
Do you think that the way you are now, with the way you're mentoring kids, you've found a greater appreciation for that younger generation, and obviously they're even like the generation coming through, they're way more different to probably the ones that you could have helped, but you're just touching on it now that it was more about, probably more intense, and you worked even harder and very direct with your feedback, but now going through what you're doing and helping these young kids, like if you look back now, how would you approach your days at Richmond and the Giants? How would you have changed your way of going about it to, as you said, you're at the top of your game. So, and I understand this as well as a young player. You can't treat young players like you because they're still developing and they don't think like you, and everyone's different. So you've kind of hit the nail on the head. And it's great that you reflect. And as I said, you look so much happier. You can tell that you've worked it out a bit. What would have you done differently with the brand analysis of the world and all these young players that I guess even at Richmond that you've seen it kind of blossomed? But what would have you done differently?
Well, I think, mate, the biggest thing and how I tried to bring other boys along was especially in off season, that was where I did most of my work with other players. In season, it was more about getting your body right and performance and whatever else. But I'd constantly be texting blokes saying, come on, let's go. We'll go and train together. And I used to get so shitty with blokes that would pull out at the last minute. Oh, no, I've slept in. Oh, I can't be bothered today. I'm going to go later. I'm like, never go later because then it doesn't happen. Or I was always get up, shop early, beat the rush. Ivan Maric loves that saying. And I was big on that as well. Get up, get it done, and then you got the rest of your day to yourself. And I still say it to my young blokes now. I think it's more about understanding just that not everyone gets it and sees it the way that I did. And it took me a long time to grasp that it's like, are you serious, you dumbass? Like, how do you not see that that's how you shouldn't be playing that way?
Yeah.
Just do this. It's like, mate, I don't understand what you mean, just do that. That just comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
You just know to run to that position. I was like, yeah. Now I think back about it, I'm like, yeah, I get that. I took it for granted that blokes were just as clued in, and it wasn't until I probably got to the Giants that I was like, man, these guys don't even really watch that much footy. They don't even understand.
Yeah, different group.
Mate. And I'd sit next to Widders, who was the most laid-back, number one draft pick, superstar, halfback, flanker, wingman that I've seen. But just lay back, roll in, backpack on the shoulder, just like, we'll go out and train now. Roll around on his left, just lace blokes out. But whereas I was like, hey, how do you do that? Like, come on, switch on, let's go. We're a professional outfit here, but he would train as hard as anyone, but then just be like, here's what it is. My body's the way it is because I'm just that way, whereas my attitude was always like, well, don't have it that way. Do more. What are you eating? What are you drinking? All that sort of stuff. And it's like, well, he's still playing good footy. And that's keeping him happy and keeping him sane. Well, allow that to be, versus one size fits all and my way or the highway,
It's funny. I think about Richmond from the outside, and Emma Murray's well documented with all the boys and all the work they've done with their minds probably, and working together as a team. Was she there when you were there?
She just started as I was leaving, So I'd gone into that space a little bit too with the meditation and that with my ex-captain, Kane Johnson. So that was a big turning point in my career as well. 2014, wasn't playing great footy, started like I was just average. I wasn't dominating games or anything like that. So I invested in myself, got in touch with Shugsy, and he's basically taken me on this journey of meditation, mindfulness, but then also completely changing my diet and how I ate, getting away from carbs and all that sort of stuff, but getting light, huge amounts of salads and good fresh proteins and all that sort of stuff. And I'd never done that before. You'd think that's funny when you're given the professional lifestyle, but I hadn't gone that way before. I was like, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm in good shape. Skinny's always good.
Good rig. Natural, I reckon.
Yeah.
He worked hard for it.
Just blessed, you reckon?
Nah.
No, but look, I had to take it to another level, and I worried about the outside noise more than a lot probably understand, but it was whatever anyone was thinking of me. I'd be really worried about what my teammates would think if I didn't play a good game. I'm getting kissed on the dick by the coach because I didn't play that well, but he doesn't say anything or whatever else. Yeah. The media are saying stuff in the paper. I'd read it all. I'd listen to it all. And he said, mate, none of that shit matters. When you really think about it, and that's when we started the meditation and really starting to understand just being present, what matters is me and you right here, and I don't want to get all spiritual.
No, you're spot on though. It's good for people to understand.
But I got to the point where I was like, you know what, it doesn't matter. And my relationships with players and everything else became so much better because I realised that they didn't care about all that stuff. What they cared about is my time with them. And then my form just went like through the roof. Started averaging a couple of goals and 25 plus and just having damage on the game, versus run-of-the-mill tagged by crowds and Tendai and having a stinker against the Dockers on the G. And then I took that into 2015, continued with it, went really well. And then 16 was just a shitty year, mate, that ended up being a complete train wreck. Injuries after injuries, tore my quad a couple of days before round one, and then calf at the end of the year, mate. It was just times were telling me that something needed to change. When I drove home one night and we lost, and there's a huge heap of hype about Brett Deledio plays and Richmond win, and then we lost to basically Port Adelaide's twos. They had a heap of stars out, Robbie Gray and Travis Boak, I reckon we're out, Westhoff potentially out as well. I was like, well, we should knock these blokes over, and we lose. And I played okay, first game back in 7 weeks, but felt this huge guilt, drove in my street, and tears just started pouring down my face. And I sat there and spoke to my wife until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, I can't do this shit anymore. This is really starting to wreck me. And, I just said, I started to explore what it would look like changing clubs then, around 6 or 7, 2016. Caught up with my manager. And I was like, mate, this is what I'm thinking. Still had a year to run on my contract. I think I need something different, But then ups and downs of footy, you start to play, you get back from your injuries, and you start to play okay, you go all right. Then a stinking game. We played a night game down at Tassie, get beaten by 90 points by the Kangas. And the next day, Dimmer comes in, he goes, you, leadership group, you are piss weak, you in particular. And I'm just like, fuck this. I don't need this shit. Which started just the whole up and down. And then I hurt my calf in a game, round 17 or 18, and just called it quits basically for the rest of the year. I said, no, listen, I'm just going to get my body right for next year, play the kids. All the while in the back of my head, I'm thinking I'm leaving this joint, And it wasn't until I plucked up the courage to go and see Dimmer straight after the season. I just said, mate, I think I need to change. And I had a great relationship with him where I could just tell him and talk to him about anything. And he thought he was under the bus as well at that stage. Like
I think he was. Yeah.
So he was right under the pump, and he could see it. And he said, I said, mate, I think I want to go to Geelong. So I'd always had dreams. My brother lives down in Torquay. I've always wanted to live down by the beach, country sort of feel club, obviously being a country boy. But he said, mate, I reckon you should go to the Giants because I was like, oh, really? I've got a young family. I just had my first daughter like 18 months before that. Shit frightened, to be honest.
Dimmer said that to you?
He said, I think you should go to the Giants.
He sounds like a ripper, Dimmer.
Yeah, because he goes, mate, I want you to experience what I've experienced, the premiership and what that's like. And the Giants look like they just played off in the 16
they had a good
prelim,
list.
Had a great list, young and exciting. Probably could have knocked off the Dogs had they got a couple of things right. And then they smacked the Swans, only 2 weeks before. And Stevie didn't play. He tells me that he was the difference, the big Stevie J.
I got to get him on, actually, Stevie.
But when he said that to me, I was like, man, I can't do that. There's no way I can move to Sydney. So I went through the process of meeting with Chris Scott and Steve Hocking of the Cats. That ultimately fell through because there was just too much of a discrepancy in terms of what I was going to be paid for my contract, for what I was going to get to go down there because I just didn't have room. I'd come to them too late with it, essentially. Then the Dogs came about because they'd won the flag, and I had a mate who knew Bevo. I said, mate, just text him and say I'm keen to come to the Dogs. I've got to get out of the Tigs. Had a meeting with him and Jace McCartney. Had a medical with him. I'm sitting out the front of the medical, and unfortunately, they're testing my calf range, and I just nicked my calf at this point in time.
Oh, Jesus.
So I'm just going, oh, yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah. Oh, mate, you know what calf's like.
Oh,
and trying to do heel raises. Or calf raises, mate. So I'm battling through that. Oh, can you jump on it? Yeah. Oh, I'm just shooting pains right up the back of my leg.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Pulling the wool over their eyes. And Cambo rang me and he's like, mate, I need to know because we got Will Hoskinelli who's probably going to leave as well if you say you're going to come. I sat there with Katie in the car at the front of the doctor's office in South Yarra. And I was just like, what do you think, mate? Do you think we can do it? She goes, I'll back you with whatever you want to do. I said, well, I had an opportunity to leave the Tigs in 2009. I was out of contract to go to the Pies. They win the flag in 2010. So that's in the back of my mind. And I'm thinking, if I say no and then the Giants go on and win 2 of the next 3 or whatever, because that's what they look like doing.
Yeah.
How do I forgive myself for that, not being ballsy enough to grab that opportunity and say, you know what? Yeah, loyalty's great and playing at one club is fantastic. And that opportunity was there. But I've also got this other opportunity that I pussied out on back in 2009. We'd just come off Wooden Spoon. Dimmer was just starting as a coach. Pussied out. Collingwood go and do what they did. Luke Ball ended up taking that, gets his first flag. Played off in the drawn grand final.
Against Saints, yeah.
Against the Saints. So I'm like, I have to do it, don't I? I said to Katie, we have to do this. She goes, it'll be hard, but yeah, we can do it. We can make it work. So I rang Campbell. I said, mate, I'm in. And it wasn't until the death knock of trade period that it actually went through.
Always the case, isn't it?
The day of, my sister got married, so we're up down in Torquay. She's getting married in the bridal party. So that took my mind off it completely. Hammered that night. Next day, I'm like, right, how do we go about getting the flag? And this is always my mentality. So my brother, 2 hoodies on, boxing mitts out, and we're just going for it, mate, for an hour. Like just sweating that piss out, and I'm like, I'm coming back. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But mate, yeah, like
we'll touch on it. So there's everyone that doesn't know, we all know that this next year is challenging for a few reasons, and we'll tap into there's 2 reasons, and the perspective you've got on one of them, but also you meet your old team in a prelim. And lose. And we'll talk about that in a second. But do you think now just that change, that made you a better person? That's helped you right now as a player agent. Yeah. That's made you understand that there's more to footy than footy. You've got to meet some amazing people. Like I'm the Giants Football Club. Like I'm going up to a past players event after this. I played 2 games. I feel so a part of it. I'm still very close to Dill Addison and the club and the players probably because they're the most recent. But it is a club in AFL, I'd imagine, unlike any because they're trying to just they got such strong glue with anyone that's been there. They bring them back as much as they can. You're always welcome in the rooms. You're always welcome to things. The change for you might have opened up your eyes to, again, you release some stress and it's a fresh start. You would have felt like a kid going to school again. All that stuff. Did that reinvigorate your career? Even though you did have no luck with your body, but did it reinvigorate you?
Mate, the first 6 weeks was awesome because I was training really well in the sun. Feeling like, you know what, I'm going to be a real difference to this team. And I don't feel like the whole weight of the world is on me to be the best player.
Just play your role.
Just play my role and chip in. But I feel like my game can go to another level because of the release of that stress, But then, one session, mate, just bang, calf and out. And we tried, I reckon, maybe 4, 5, 6 reoccurrences of, let's build up slow, get it going, bang, gone. And it was, like you said, it was not until, I didn't get back to play until round 18 or 19, that year. But it did reinvigorate me, mate. And that just to go back on that, it was a real that back to school sort of mentality. I was shit frightened the first day I rolled into the club because I knew hardly any of these boys, and I'm sitting there locker number 7, and I'm like, I know these boys from afar, and I've had some good battles with a few of them. Like Tobes and I butted heads a couple of times on there because he. He'd gotten into Milesy, who used to play up there at the Giants as well. Milesy then became one of my teammates, but I was like, some of these blokes, like, I'm not sure how I'm going to be received. I knew Shorey and Griff because I played against them for years. Griff and I were in the same draft. So I lent on those sort of boys, and Griff was obviously tight with Jezza and Big Door Simpson, just a good country bloke.
Oh, what a guy.
Exactly. So, and Stevie was there, who was great for me as well, because a couple of old boys, he actually tried to get me up there prior to making any decisions at my mate's, one of my best mates from back home wedding. They know each other, mutual connection. So Stevie's there, like, saying, mate, you got to come. We're going to win three of the next 4 flags, mate. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
So well, I can't remember where I was going with
You're
that.
saying like a kid out of school. Round 18, you got your first game
Round
back.
18, got my first go back. Like, I had to come back through the twos. I'd never come back through the twos before. I was just like, I'm not doing that. Like, but I understood because I had so many weeks off and I only had to play a half. So I played my first half out of Blacktown. We ended up getting the win, which was awesome. But then I had to go and run like 6 or 7 200s after.
Welcome to second grade. That was me bread and butter, mate. Yeah. I used to do that playing first grade. I'd be doing laps after the game.
Mate, the boys were waiting to go off the ground. I'm still running 200s.
That's the perspective you're getting though. Like that's what you now know. Like that's the shit I had to go through. That's why I love talking to younger guys going, that's what these guys like you, that if you kept playing your career, nothing happened, you'd find out later in life it's a bit harder. Yeah. That's the shit that I reckon when the superstars understand that there's a bloke doing laps while you're singing the song and you go out there and clap him on his last lap, that makes him feel better than anything. You know what I mean? That's 100%. That little things like that it's good that you went through.
Yeah, and mate, it was one of the toughest periods just to get back. And I spent countless hours. Were you there with Mike?
I got to the end of Mike. So when I got picked up, I had him for 2 months and then he left. Still keep in contact on Instagram, actually.
Mate, he's a ledge.
Spewing he wasn't there because I reckon my career would have been still going.
Well, I developed a really strong relationship with Mike.
He's the physio for anyone else out there that doesn't know.
To the point where he came over for dinner. His wife and that were back home, wife and 2 little kids. He came over for dinner. And as I'm saying goodbye, mate, he's like, "Oh, there's something I've got to tell you." And I was like, "Oh, what is it?" And he goes, I've been given my job back at Harlequins, mate. I'm going back. I said, "Fuck, kidding me, aren't you?" I'm like, I was that devastated because he got me back.
Yeah.
And got my body feeling great. And it was just through time and different things. He explored so many to the point where 2 years later, after I'd finished, he rang me and he said, "Mate, I'm still doing work on calf stuff and how it affects." And I see all his Twitter feed. He's just, this is on calf and soleus and what the ramifications of things you do day to day that can help.
Yeah,
mate, it was a minefield. But get back, played that game, and I started to play some really good footy. Like started to really find my feet. We played through the finals. Just on the eve of the finals, I'm doing a training session thinking I've hardly played this year. I'm fresh as. Tried to explode out of the goal square, and I've had Achilles issues right throughout my career and just feel this little twing in my Achilles. I'm like, oh, Jesus, that was a bit sore. Hopefully that comes good. Carried that right throughout the final series to the point, I don't know whether you've ever had Achilles tendonitis or anything, mate, but Christ, it is chronic. I used to text Jared McVeigh a bit because Callum Mills had it, and I said, try this. All these things that I'd tried that got it back for Callum Mills, because when you see guys that have it, you understand their pain and what they're going through. Big Nick Nat's going through it at the moment, Achilles tendonitis. It's miserable.
I had patella tendonitis. Is it stuff that you just got to warm them up and keep them warm? Was it similar stuff?
Yeah, but the Achilles don't tend to warm up because there's not a whole heap of blood flow going down there to the Achilles. And it feels like it's about to snap most times you run. And you're at a slow pace, it is just miserable, and you can't run around sprint all day in a game of footy. Like every step is just, anyway. I carried that right through the final series. We played a pretty ordinary game against Adelaide in the quali, and then smacked the Eagles in the semi.
So now, let me just, I don't want to skip over this, but because I want to just break this down. There's 2 reasons, but you smack them, you go to the prelim, right? You you got this issue. People wouldn't really know. You're playing your old team, Richmond, in a prelim.
Game 250.
250, I didn't even know that. So your 250th, you're at the G, the Giants versus Richmond. The headlines, I'd imagine, would have been everywhere. Were you absorbing that external noise, or had you learned to block it out at that point yet? Or you're just reading everything about your 250th and how this could be redemption, or this is the biggest game of your life, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I knew it was the biggest game of my life because I hadn't played in a prelim before. And I was just super excited by that. You know, I was like, you know what, well, I'm this close to playing in a granny. And that was what I'd worked everything for. And there's a reason why I left Richmond, ultimately. So, yeah, I was reading it, mate. And it was a bit about, you know, when you play 250, you look back and there's some stories coming through where you've done some things, I forgot about that, you know, and it's good to reminisce a little bit. But the biggest part of it was, for me, was my body's, when I spent hours icing and trying to get this Achilles right just so I could come out and perform and not embarrass myself against my old teammates, my old supporters.
It was your first time against your old team as well?
First time, yeah. So I'm brave face, got this.
No one knows about the injury?
No. Oh, the physios and the coach did, and not many of my teammates probably. I just put hours into it to try and get it right. Mike, I think Mike was there at that stage.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. He knew all about it, and he was obviously because he got me through my calf stuff. And I'm just battling away, mate, trying anything, putting heat through it, putting like a numbing cream. Yeah, mate. Anyway, doesn't work. I feel I play an absolute mare of a game, like one of the worst games I've been a part of, apart from being tagged by Lingy in a 160-point loss at Marvel. I told Mum that's it for me. I'm going back to cricket after that game. I just remember being like, I didn't touch it until in the second quarter. Josh Caddy comes to me at quarter time. He goes, "Fuck, are you out here, are you?" I was like, "Will you fuck off, mate? Get out of my face." He goes, "You don't know this, but none of these blokes even like you." I tried to get inside his head, and then Stevie come over the top. Apparently after the game, he was talking to Greg and he's like, "Mate, you said that no one even likes you." Greg is like, "Mate, that's the oldest trick in the book. Everyone says that about your old teammates." Sorry, Josh, if you have a listen, mate. I don't mean any of that, but I was angry, mate, and I was getting worked up. Dusty had come from behind and just smacked me in the back. I was like, "You fucking jerk."
You're good mates with him.
Good
so
mates
with him. In your head as well.
He got inside my head. Grigor then comes over the top and gives me a knee or an elbow that rattled me. Like, I was seriously rattled after that. High free kick it to a no man's land. Like, it goes nowhere. Sitting on the bench in the third quarter, Tigers got a run on. They're flying.
It was a tight game as well, wasn't it?
It was for a large period of it. We lost, obviously, our best player, Sheely, got knocked out by Koch. So Sheely didn't play after quarter time, which really hurt us a bit because he was on fire. And then, they started to run away with it. And I just remember sitting there just thinking, I'm not sure I want to be here. Sub me out. Like, if Sheely wasn't there, I would have been like, if there was a vest still, I would say, give me the vest.
Just that rattled.
I was rattled, mate. It was tough. Like, I really, it was an out-of-body sort of experience. 94,000, 2,000 Giant supporters, I reckon.
And on one leg, essentially. And you're probably playing, what are you playing, half forward?
Oh, no, I played half back.
Half back.
Playing on Castagna, Rioli and Dan Butler. These little whippets, they're just flying around.
Yeah,
and I'm doing my best. I thought, well, if I'm going to do anything, I'm just going to tackle as hard as I can. Then Jake Townsend puts me on my ass with "Don't argue." There's a photo of it and he sends it to me straight after. He goes, "Couldn't get the old boy, could you?" Cheese keg.
Isn't he a machine?
Yeah, legend.
Oh, wow. I mean, again, like these are kind of like, I've had we saw the other day, like me biggest mare in a prelim as well, you know, dropping that mark and against Cyril, it's probably forgotten about now, but like you just got to look back and laugh, you know, you put yourself in these positions as a kid that you'd only dream of to say, "Hey, do you want to play 250 and play your old team?" This is a script, not play at all or play 250, play like a dog, play like an absolute dog. But you know, you get to learn a lot of lessons and later in life, you realize it's not as important as you probably think. But yeah, man, it's cool to just talk about it. But yeah, how hard was it after that? Like, did you beat yourself up?
Oh, I took that so hard, mate. I remember tearing up on the ground and just seeing like those boys, and I was appreciative of the love that a lot of those boys gave me. I mean, it's easy when you've won, I get it. But mate, they are some of my best mates that I'd gone through all the hard times with, but it wasn't until later in that week that I actually realised these guys are going to play in a granny, and I'm like, I hate these blokes now. I can't stand them. And I was like, you know what? Adelaide's been the best team all year. They won't even win. So it'll be fine. They'll lose and I'll feel good about it, you know? I remember my wife, and I've said this publicly before, is my wife was like, you know what? I don't think it's good for your health, mate, to watch the game, because I'd watch every granny for years. Watch the game or anything like that. Switch your phone off. We'll go to the zoo with our eldest daughter, and we'll have a day out and stay away from it. I'm up there shooting hoops. My little girl's riding her bike, just learning. And this guy's got it on his fucking pocket. Would you believe it? I'm just like, you're kidding me. In Sydney, I've never had any football ever in Sydney.
Yeah.
And this bloke's got it on his pocket at the playground that I'm at on a basketball court. I get home and I go to the toilet, come back out, and I'm looking. I check the scores, thinking it must be nearly done, and I'm just like, you are fucking kidding me. They're up by 35 points. They're gonna win. A couple of minutes left, and I just went off, like completely lost it, and just went to my room and just like tantrum like a little 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like my little girls do now, tantrum, slammed the door and laid on the bed and just was like, I was a mess. And I said to my wife, I'm so sorry that I've brought you up here. I've done all of this. You know, I'm so sorry. I've made it so hard for us, because I've been a misery all year because I've been injured and whatever else. But this was me again, going back to just being selfish and thinking it's all about me, you know? And mate, I couldn't give enough credit to my wife and how she handled it and kept me completely together and us as a family, you know, about through that journey of me feeling sorry for myself and being like, and mate, and to be honest, like I handled, and I've said this as well before, that I handled the whole Richmond winning that flag miserably because I was hurt, mate. Like I was genuinely gutted that I'd worked so hard and gave everything to try and get them there, to then see them do it without me. I was just like,
1 year out as well.
Mate, and that's the thing. It's like, but I talk to so many people now and they come up and they pat you on the back and say, mate, loved watching you as a player. That's great. Who would have known, mate? Like, who would have thought that's where we're at? You know, at the end of 2016, wheels falling off, a minority group trying to overrun the board, trying to get rid of Dimmer, focus on footy, whatever, to being back to where they were, and they just looked like they were just loving their time to win the flag. I was just like, fuck these blokes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why sport's so good, right? Like, it's just backs against the wall. No one expected it. Yeah, you know, your story comes out of this. Yeah, I mean, I still remember it happening. Obviously, really good mates with Brandon Ellis and a few of the boys that were there, and you know, Richmond were a laughing stock at the time. They'd finished 9th every year. They couldn't even make the finals, you know, and then they've gone on and become one of the greatest teams that we've seen in my time, probably Brisbane and them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's you're stiff. But again, you got to reflect and say, well, I wouldn't have met the Giants people and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now so well. Exactly. You know, you might be still selfish and struggling in the role and not being able to transition. So it's good to reflect, and it's good that you're honest. Appreciate the honesty.
Well, things got even harder the next year, mate, so it's not even...
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we might as well touch on it, but like the granny and then obviously the calves and getting there, and it's just, once you do a calf as well, people out there, like it's just a reoccurrence, isn't it? There's a weakness in there, and it only takes
scar
one
tissue, mate, and then away she goes again.
One day it's a bit cold and Nick.
Yeah.
Have you reflect on all the Giant stuff and all that? Like, have you moved on? Like, how long did it take you to move on?
I used to still get a little bit shitty post-retirement about it all, because you get the odd jerk who'd come into your DMs and be like, how do you feel about the Tigers, mate? You made a great decision there, didn't you? You know, and they really love like laying the boots in. But mate, I'm so comfortable with the career that I had and knowing that I gave everything to try and get the best out of myself. And that's all you can do as a player, can't you? You know, and I feel like, you know, I gave it all to try and be the best player I could be. Wasn't always probably the greatest teammate, but think that I learned a lot of lessons along the way and set good examples along the way of how to prepare and get the best out of yourself, and then ultimately perform on game day. So that's probably a little bit wankish, but...
No, it's good. I think all you needed was just someone to pull you in the line at the time. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about it now. It's like, if someone just grabbed you and said, listen, son, everything you're doing is the example for everyone, but you're too intense with these blokes. I want you to go spend some time with them.
But they did, mate.
So you reckon you ignored that?
It wasn't so much ignoring. I just thought, you know what? And I remember I read something about Scott Pendlebury saying it the other day, is that you are, as a player, you're incredibly selfish and driven in your own, what you've got to do for your performance. You know, everything's about your recovery, about you getting ready to play game day, essentially. And I was that, you know. But I thought the best way to set an example was to drive hard standards and lead the way. You know, that's what I thought. But unfortunately, because I really battled with the lows of a bad performance or a loss, you know, that's where I probably let it affect me far too much and didn't just be like, you know what, the game's gone now and I can't do anything about it. So, but yeah, mate, I learned a hell of a lot of lessons and more perspective probably the following year. My sister-in-law lost her life to brain cancer, and then only a couple of months after that, her son, little nephew, lost his life, completely unrelated to brain cancer, as well as a 2-year-old. And at that time, I was just like, footy is just so small in my world and our world compared to what's going on outside. And it was really tough at that time, mate, because we were in Sydney, couldn't be there enough to support Katie's brother and the rest of the family with everything they were going through. And here I am worried about my calf. You know, and I'm not playing, and my team's just won the old team's just won a flag, and they're playing really good again. You know, they're looking like it. It's like, mate, there's so much more going on.
Yeah. No, I saw that interview with Nerily Meadows, and it's emotional stuff. It's stuff that you don't know. You don't know what someone's going through,
No,
and
you don't.
and when were you going through that? What time of was that was that in season?
Well, little Alfie, he lost his life in May, I think it was. So that was in season, and Sarah was early that year. So we had our last Christmas with her, end of 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, mate, it was just
it's just tough. I can't even relate to that. And then you put everything else you're going through. It's just a real. You're in a bad headspace.
I was.
And yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about that because anyone wants to see that interview. I stopped watching because I start crying. I get emotional. What were your lessons out of that? You're obviously resilient. You've obviously overcome it. There's no doubt you still, there's still things you think about and still working on. But if someone went through that's a young player at Max Sports, right? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think what my advice would be is that family always comes first. And you should always put that first and foremost. You know, footy, and I think we're seeing that now with Clarko, with his saying, well, my mental space, my mental health and my family have got to come way before me being a head coach and whatever else. And I think that's probably the key. It's like, if you're not right, mate, you got to find someone that you can talk to or help you out with it. And mate, I'll always be that person to talk to about it for my client because I've been through similar sort of tribulations, but I'm not qualified, mate, as a psychologist nor psychiatrist or whatever to be able to really give and knuckle down on it. But I've been through some shitty times and learnt that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, to use an old cliche. But look, it was a tough time, mate, and I realised that you can go through these shitty times but still come out the other side. And mate, I look at my brother-in-law and his ability to deal with all that loss and still be strong for his eldest son and be a good dad and not just turn to the bottle or drugs or anything like that and focus on himself and his son, says to me, there's just like, you know what, I've got it bad because of my calf and my old team, but how's this bloke? He's just gone through everything he's done with his wife and his youngest son, but then he's trained and he runs an Ironman over in Kona, and we all went over at the end of that year, 2018, and watched him run an Ironman in a ridiculous time for a guy who's not a professional. And it was just like, man, this guy's inspiring.
Yeah.
And that's where it's sort of like, put things in perspective. Footy's great and it always will be. It's given me everything that I've got in my life right now, but there's also so much more to life, and it's so short-lived as well, footy. Like, I was lucky to play for 15 years, but a lot of guys play for 6 max.
Averages 4.
Averages 3 or 4. So make the most of it while you're in it and get connected while you're in it, like really get outside of yourself and go and speak to different people, mate. And one thing I admire about you is your ability to just talk with anyone you know, and really find little ways that you can learn little pieces of information and whatever else. We didn't know each other from a bar of soap, only through Brando, really, was our sort of connection. Then Matty DeBoer, obviously, because he was there when you came, but mate, we hit it off because we had our calf issues, so we're probably brothers in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, you're right though. Yeah, and you're spot on. I mean, you do work out that it's short lived, and we're very lucky. And yeah, perspective's everything. You know, we've all got a story. I got a really close mate, and he knows who it is who lost his parents on a flight, and that's something that it's something that I always think about when I'm like, you know, don't be complaining about something. Like when you're genuinely having a bad day, you think about that and you go, oh, what am I complaining about? Get on with it, you know? Yeah. But yeah, it's good advice from you to say you can get out of it. You can, you know, it's inspiring to see that he's run that marathon. It's inspiring to hear, and it's great that you can talk about it. I think sharing these stories is so cool, you know? Yeah. Especially hearing it from someone like you, a genuine superstar, like no sugarcoating on it. The thing that's hard with a career is you do get old, you know, you can't stay at the top for so long. Exactly. I'm seeing Nat Fyfe go through it now. Like he's still got a little bit in him, but you can see he's coming as a sub. He's playing as a sub. Like
he's not 2015.
Nah, but that's the way that he would think he is, and that's the way everyone perceives him as. And it's just, you know, you just start to get a bit older, and there's a young guy coming through like a Caleb Sarong, who's now the new guy on the block, and
it's hard to deal with.
It's hard to deal with, imagine, because it's hard to deal with that external noise that they put the pressure on you. Like why aren't you playing like at that form again? It's just the way it is. So, and this is why we'll end these segments now, but you look back on your career, mate, you did some amazing things individually, like the amount of games you played. It's crazy to think how you even did it. But yeah, growing up, mate, as I said, I remember going to the G as an Essendon fan, and you used to wear yellow boots a bit, didn't you? Like I used to remember seeing this bloke just running down the guts with having a few bounces, pure silk, like at the top of your game. Like how's it feel to just know you used to just dominate? like, do you reflect on some games and go, wow, you know, I might have had a tough ending, but geez, I wish I just had one of those days again.
Yeah, and they are great days when you're on top of your game and you just feel like you can do no wrong. There's nothing better.
In a city which I've only established the last couple of years, I've only been here for about 18 months. It's full on.
Yeah,
it's almost too much. Yeah. I don't read and watch TV. I don't watch TV. I don't read the papers. I might look at photos if my mates are in them to take the piss out of them. Rarely do I look at the papers. Social media, I absorb a lot just because of the business. But I can only imagine the head noise, whether you're a gun or not, you're just in the paper flat out. So imagine when you're dominating, you are the king.
Yeah.
And obviously they try to bring you down as well, but when you are at the top of your game, that must feel good.
Yeah. Oh, it did. I probably didn't have it earlier in my career because we had Richo playing, mate, and Richo was a superstar.
Yeah, he was.
And he was the big dog from the moment I got there, that it was just all about Big Rick. And to the point where he changed his nickname from Richo, because everyone calls him Richo. I was like, just call me Rick. Not many people probably know that. But yeah, he was the guy that I looked up to, and I got along really well with Nathan Brown. Obviously, he was silk class half forward, go on ball, but then broke his leg. Kane Johnson I looked up to a hell of a lot because he just worked incredibly hard. Not the most gifted player, but worked so hard.
Yeah.
But then those times, mate, when it was probably like I won my first best and fairest in 08, and feel like, you know, I started to belong and I could understand my game a little bit. But it wasn't until that was a 21-year-old, wasn't until probably another 6 years after that I really understood footy. And I remember talking to Dad after one game and just being like, you know what, I feel like every game I go out there now, I'm going to play well because I understand the work rate and I understand where the ball's going to go and what's going to happen. So it's like a 27, 28-year-old where you really start to understand. And there's freaks, mate. I get it. Like they just dominate from early age. And Nick Dacos, mate, like he's in that space already.
Yeah, and you think maybe he's got that head, you know, he's got that, he's so wise because his old man's clearly taught him at a young age, just little things like maybe patterns and, you know, do this and do that, stand here, don't stand there. And you can just tell he
understands his game.
He gets the game. He knows where the ball's going to be. He knows what to do in certain situations.
And they give it to him at all costs, mate, because he's such a great user and a good decision maker. But I reckon 08, 09, the back end of 09, I was nearly dropped halfway through 09. I remember being challenged by Wayne Campbell. He was our midfield coach. We played St Kilda. I was supposed to be tagging Jason Graham, I think. One stoppage, middle of the ground. I've gone this way. He's gone that way. Kicks a goal. He goes, how do you reckon you went? I said, I thought, you know, bro, I had 21 or something. He had 24, maybe kicked the goal. you are fucking deplorable. And I was just like, I could have just sat in front of everyone in the team meeting. I just was like, so they like honestly thought Plough had been given the arse at this time. Jade Rawlings is in charge as the coach. He rings me on a Thursday. I'm not sure which way we're going to go, mate. I think we might bring in a young Alex Rance and play your role. I'll get back to you by the end of the day. Oh, you're kidding me. If this is the case, I'm out of here by the end of the year. If I'm getting dropped now, I'm out.
Because you just won a BNF the year before.
Just won a BNF. But it just been going average. Anyway, they said, right, we're going with you and you're going to become a tagger for the rest of the year. I was just like, well, I'm not dropped. Tagger.
I've done that, mate. It actually, you know what? It actually helps you get the pill.
Mate, and that's where my game went from average to the most contested ball in the back half of the year in the comp. You know, like I'm just wrestling these blokes and getting the scraps. Played that game up in the Gold Coast against Adelaide, for God knows why. Playing on Dave McKay, who was like playing really good footy on the wing. Kept him to 10 or 12. I had 30. I'm thinking, all right, this tagging thing's not too bad.
Yeah.
Ended up doing that at different players throughout the year. Got to the point where I played Sydney against Jared McVeigh and we just went head-to-head all day. He wouldn't even remember this probably, but I remember it because it was my role to shut him out. 14 touches each and just ran our asses off all day and everything was contested. Such a slog. Then played on Lee Harding. Remember Lee Harding played for North Melbourne?
North Melbourne, the forward. He was a big, solid bloke,
So he was playing real good footy.
Kick goals.
So I'm playing on him, and I've got Josh Gibson trying to tag me playing on Lee Harding because I was in good form.
Yeah.
You know? And then Gibbo obviously goes play premiership player, best and fairest, whatever, as a back. That was really a good time, and I felt like I was earning my stripes.
Yeah, you'd be the most valued player. Like I always think about Ryan Crowley, who's always the player you'd vote trade. We call it trademark, which is our internal values, and if they ticked them, and he was always keeping players probably like yourself to 15s, and like we used to help him, mind you. I tell you what, man, squealing he used to do. Oh, I get it, you know. Like obviously we'd see out, but you just knew that he was going to lock him up and give him a real tough day.
But you played at the end of each game. You knew you'd played a game because you'd work. Exactly, because you're accountable to your bloke. I learned a lot off playing off Juddy, you know, and what he used to do. And other guys in that, Andrew Welsh when he was flying at Essendon, you know, different guys. But, mate, that was a time when you came off. But it was also the hardest block of training I'd done as well for the back end of the year. Every Thursday, I'd just get bashed by Cambo and Kane Johnson, one on two, and they would bash me, repeat efforts over and over, and then play on the Saturday. Yeah. Because they were like, well, hard work pays off. And I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm going to get you back. We're going to do more potties. We'll talk more about footy because I know you've got to go. And what you've told me today, it's some great lessons. I appreciate it. And so does everyone else out there, mate. It's as I said, I don't think we haven't spoken about this. How many times we sat in the locker room and talked shit for however long. But mate, you don't come on the potty empty-handed. And there's been a lot of talk about, we've been doing potties a while now on different platforms. You found some. And I thought I've got to save the Sunnies, mate. I know you've been at me to get you some playing a few pranks on you, but you come on as American Aces and you get some treats.
Oh, mate, so treat. I've been hanging out for these. How long have I been hitting up for these?
Oh, mate, too long. Too long. So these are the Soho dark green crystals, grey polarized. These are what you've been looking after for a while, mate. So you're welcome, and we love your support. You've got the Porters, you've got your Melrose, you've got I think everything. This is a different style, a bit squarer, thicker.
How they look?
Yeah, they look good. I mean, it's hard. I say they look good, whether they look horrendous. They're different styles. Said they're thicker, they're squarer, and. Yeah,
I feel like rock stars.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's always funny, like Americans wearing, I got a sunglass company, right? I'd never wear sunglasses inside. Yeah. You can't see as clear. Like I like to just, if I was at a basketball game, I watch all these superstars, they sit courtside and they got sunnies. Yeah, I'm like, how do they see in the game? Like I'd rather experience that game with no sunnies on.
AD doing his press conference yesterday, he's just like kicking back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just had 40.
Yeah. Imagine doing that after the, you just went on the G and had 30. Yeah. Mate, RIXX and Retirement's the segment, so leave them on for this one just while you tell me your location. Essentially, it's a hypothetical, but if money wasn't an issue, you'd achieved everything in the roles, in life.
Yep.
You fulfilled. Where's the one place that Lidsy's taken the family in the world, taken the RIXXies, and why?
One place in the world, mate, to live forever after this?
To retire, as a retirement home.
Yeah. Well, I can only go to places that I've been to, but it's probably, I got married in Byron Bay. I love Byron Bay. It's such a cool place. So if I'm going up there to retire, I reckon that's probably my spot.
Yeah, that's a great spot.
Love that place.
That's good. I think we might have had one of them, maybe not, but that's a great spot. We go to the famous influencer heaven, that Ray's joint. Have you been there for dinner?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And then some different cats around Byron Bay, which is just like people watching, a few beers at the Beachy. Is it the Beachy? Is that what it's called?
The Beach Hotel.
Yeah.
One of the best pubs in Australia. I got married there, coming up 11 years ago. And mate, only just went back for the first time, took my girls, and then went out to the place that I got married all last year because it was our 10-year anniversary. So
that's mint.
Mate, love that joint and looking forward to getting back there very, very soon.
Oh, let me know when you're there, mate. Well, that's great. There you go. Lidsy's taking the fam to Byron Bay and the RIXXs. Appreciate that, mate. You can take them off because I've got another little treat for you here from our friends Milwaukee. Now, mate, you know it's getting pretty cold at the moment.
And I'm watching a lot of footy outside.
Are you watching a lot of kids in the country in early hours of the day? Is it quite fresh?
Freezing, mate.
Well, mate, I've got something for you, right?
Yeah.
I've got the heated jacket. This is out of the box.
Mate.
You get a brand new one. Have a go at this. So it's out of the box there. This is what it is. It's a heated jacket from Milwaukee. This thing is the Milwaukee Tough Shell heated jacket. It's the go-to for protection from the elements on the job site or when you're enjoying the outdoors. The M12 Tough Shell heated jacket, powered by M12 red lithium ion batteries to provide lasting runtime, has 3 adjustable heat settings and zones to trap heat in all-day warmth. And to get you out of the cold immediately, there's also the M12 red lithium ion starter kit behind me. So, mate, I can only imagine my parents probably watching me play AFL. If it was cold outside, it was Geelong, you're whacking one of them on and you can at least enjoy your evening while I'm not getting a kick. There's the batteries. So they go in the pocket.
Yep.
Incredible stuff, this as well. Like chatting to Tig Coyne, the great man in Milwaukee, talking to him about the actual product and understanding it. In your left pocket, there's a little attachment in there, and then that battery would go in it, attaches to that. Yep, that's the thing. And then the cord goes in that. Yep. And that button at the top, M12, you click that and that heats you up, and there's 3 settings.
There's heaters in here.
It'll heat you up, yeah.
Oh, wow, mate.
So it looks like, when you get these things, I thought, it's going to be high vis or something horrendous. Mate, they're elite.
Mate, this is neat, isn't it? How good is it? Mate, I'll be wearing this for sure out at some cold games, mate. It gets that cold watching kids play. You got to go and watch. But Christ, mate, this is my new go-to for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate you throwing it on. With Milwaukee, we always love a segment, the Milwaukee handiest moment of your career. We always ask who's the biggest tool in the locker room. I'll ask that in a second because it's a good tool. It's a bloke that carries on a bit. And don't be humble here. This is a bit of, give yourself a bit of a polish here. This is when you think about your amazing career, what's the handiest moments on the field, the Milwaukee handiest moment where you just remember doing something brilliant where you go, that's probably my highlight. When I'm 60 years old and I'm telling the grandkids, that's, the old boy used to be all right. Look at this highlight. What was it? Can you remember?
Well, probably a few. We're going to give ourselves a polish.
There he is.
Mate, like some of my favourite memories is there's nothing like when the game opens up and you can see grass in front of you and you're going to start to take some bounce and the crowd can see it as well and they know that you're pinning the ears back and you're going to go for a bit of a run. And I always thought if I'm going for a run, I'm trying to kick a goal. So there's a game, I reckon, round 1, 2013 maybe? Yeah, I reckon it was. Got a ball centred into me, played Carlton. Round 1 and just took off, and I didn't know at the time, but then looking back on it, Juddy's behind me and everyone's like, oh, Juddy's that quick. And I was just like, down I go. Knocked it through from 55 and mate, that was a great moment. Like in terms of I played a great last quarter and last game of 2008, which ultimately probably won me the best and fairest. But I kicked a goal earlier in the day, but then went to full forward late in that game and just couldn't couldn't be stopped, essentially. Like, everything was like the game had opened up. I just got on the end of it, kicked 3-2, I reckon. Missed one from the top of the goal square. I was filthy, but taking marks and holding up. But that was the quarter that I remember being the best. But that round one against Carlton was the one where I was like, I'm feeling like I'm on here. This is going. I'm kicking goals from 50, 60.
That's
and
so good.
Burning off the Judd man. And he'll probably say, I was going half pace. But no, that were the days, mate. But I used to just really pride myself on kicking running goals. I used to love them kicking them out of the centre. Like,
anyone that bursts out of a stoppage, takes a bounce and can kick it outside 50, it's the best looking goal.
I think I'm still the record holder for the fastest goal in AFL history against the Dogs, round 3, 2012.
What, off the top, off the tip, just off the ruckman?
Ivan said, go from 2 to 10, mate, and I'm going to hit it there. And also I've wrapped 2 to 10, come through, out the front of the stoppage. And
one bounce goal or no bounce?
No bounce, kick from just inside the square, bounced this far out.
That's so good.
You can see it. It's on there. But,
we'll get that up. Clip it up. This is amazing.
That's kicking goals out of the middle. The first play of the game. So it's like goes through without 8 seconds. So that's cool. That's a little Wikipedia record.
That's a little CSB midfield meeting, a little highlight reel. You know, when you're a little mid-group
just
and go,
just do this, boys.
Yeah, a little bit of stoppage structure. Here you go, boys. This is when it goes to plan. Oh, that's epic. We'll clip that up and have a look at that. Before we round out, you look back now, what are the best games? Like, Richmond's, I always say, with Dion Prestia last week, talking about just how lucky, I always say, now that I'm not playing and you are, I'd go into the game, having a beer, just watching, walking in, seeing all the crowd. Like, it's just so cool seeing 80,000 just take time out of their day to go watch a game of footy and then, to roar and kick a goal. It must feel amazing. Dreamtime at the G is a big event. Obviously, huge. Round 1, obviously Anzac Day. Like, playing at Richmond, what was the biggest game, the crowd that you remember? What was that day where you're like, wow, this is unbelievable?
Best game was the 2013 elimination final against Carlton. I remember we hadn't played finals since 01 or 02. And we were close the year before, just lost a few games by under 10 points, but finally got there in 2013 and we're playing Carlton, who had snuck into the finals because Essendon got kicked out. So we're like, please, we'll knock these blokes off. But I remember running out and running down to the punt road end, and it got to that point in the song where it's yellow and black, and I just looked across at Newey and Chappie and I was just like, how good is this? The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I'm just like, I'm amped. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end of the day, we got nutted by them, mate. Juddy went on; he was on a tear. Mitch Robinson was going pretty well in the midfield.
I think one of the blokes that just got picked up kicked 4, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Nick Dygan.
Yeah, that's right. Nick Dygan out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. But that atmosphere, that's what footy is. And that's why I always say to my mates or anyone, even American people we've met, mates, they go, what's AFL? I said, you just got to come to Melbourne, come to a Richmond Carlton or a Collingwood Essendon game. And if you can get there, it's like Gladiator. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't need to know anything about the game. Just come sit in this stadium and just listen to the crowd. Yeah. And playing at Richmond must have been.
Oh, it's huge, mate. Yeah.
I mean, Giants would have been amazing, but for different reasons. But Richmond's crowd like that, we used to, Freo, when we used to play, it's like, 60,000 versus 10.
Yeah. And then I saw the other side of it too when that prelim was 94-2, 92-2, 92,000 Tigs versus 2,000 Giant supporters, and I was just like, Christ.
It's a lonely place, isn't it?
Lonely, mate, lonely. I was like, get me out of here. This is miserable.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. That's brilliant. Thanks so much for your time. Again, anyone out there, head online to Milwaukee, get yourself a jacket. Them heated jackets are the go. If you want to look like Lids, Soho, dark green crystal, use the discount code ACES at checkout. Can't thank you all enough for tuning in. Really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed or followed us on our channels, please get around us. We're doing the 5-star rating challenge at the moment. So if that gets to 1,000, we're organising a big giveaway. But Lidsy, thanks so much, mate. Thanks for being so honest. All the best. I'll start palming some young fellas off. I don't know many. I've lost touch with all the young guys, but if we find any gems in Riddles Creek or anyone from the Calder Cannons Footy Factory, I'll let you know and flick them across.
Get them into the Max Sports, mate. We'll look after them.
Mate. Cheers, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to another episode of Tommy Talks, where you literally can't thank you enough for all your support. Speaking of support, Milwaukee's MX Fuel equipment system revolutionises the light equipment market by delivering the performance and durability demanded by the trades. From the MX Fuel cut-off saw and MX Fuel sewing machine to the MX Fuel power supply and the MX Fuel tower light, MX Fuel has you covered without the hazards associated with emissions, noise, vibration, and the frustrations of petrol maintenance. MX Fuel, equipment system, equipment redefined. Righto, we'll see you on the next podcast.